Councillor. Good evening, everybody. I'm Councillor Jeff Brooks, and I am the leader of West Berkshire Council. At last, they gave up all that acting stuff. Welcome to today's executive meeting. I just wonder if you just check your mobile phones for being on silent, please. And then we'll get into the meat of the meeting. We have apologies from Ian Cottingham. Councillor Cottingham's in Spain, and Councillor Lee Dillon, who could be otherwise engaged this evening. So that's noted. Sadie got those, yeah. On the minutes, members.
Sorry, we've also got apologies from Caroline Culver and Adrian Abbs.
Thank you very much. And that's everything. Yeah, everybody. Brilliant.
So Councillor Berwick also offered his apologies.
Oh, yes.
All right.
He may dial in. We don't.
Well, if he's apologised, I mean, I don't know if he can do half and half. Okay, minutes, please, pages 7 to 12. Members willing to accept the previous minutes as an accurate record of the meeting held on the 14th of March 2024. Do I have a proposer, please? Councillor Gaines. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Gawley. Very grateful. Any comments on the minutes? Otherwise, I'm going to ask for a show of hands in support of the minutes, please. Thank you very much indeed. They are accepted. Can I ask the clerk if there have been any declarations of interest or any others to be announced this evening?
I've received none, Leader.
I have Councillor Gaines.
Yes, Leader, I'm actually in item, 10 of, I'm actually an ex-service person.
You're an ex-service person. Thank you very much. I certainly would declare an interest as being a Thatcham Town Council member in terms of Thatcham Community Hub that will be discussed later, Sadie, just for the record. Okay, then that is the declarations of interest. We head into the public questions, of which there are 21 from what I can see. I would like to thank all members of the public that have submitted questions for this evening's executive. And we welcome those of you in attendance to hear the answer to your questions and to ask a supplementary question if you have one. Your question will appear on screen and I'm hoping that we'll start to get ready for that and will be answered by the relevant portfolio holder. You will then be given the opportunity to ask a supplementary question, but please remember this must be to clarify the response provided, be related to the response and the question, and not to introduce any new business. In accordance with the Constitution, where questions have more than one question, only their first question will be answered. And then as we've answered other questions, we'll come back, time permitting. If I get that wrong, you might benefit because I've forgotten you've answered the previous question. So we'll see how we get on. Please note the time limit for public questions is 30 minutes. 21 questions gives us about 90 seconds per question. So, you know, it's going to be tight. I don't mind adding 5 or 10 minutes on the end, but if we're way off, some will end up with a written answer. You will receive a written response within 5 clear working days of the meeting. That is what we try very, very hard to do. The responses given either verbally at the meeting or in writing will be published on the council's website in due course. And of course, you can review the responses on the YouTube channel. So I think we have the first question up, please, Thomas, and that's from Mr. Goatley. Denise, you go straight into it.
Good evening, Mr. Goatley. Thank you very much for your question. Somebody else has got the phone.
Sorry.
The long-term redevelopment of the site will be shaped by development proposals on a plot-by-plot basis. However, the Sustainable Drainage Framework strategy produced by our consultants have set out the design principles to be followed in the design of sustainable draining, the future development of the whole site. Each individual application will have to demonstrate how it fulfills the aim of that framework. Have you got a supplementary?
I'm not sure. Are you saying that it is going to be a holistic plan for the whole site at once?
The consultants have actually put together a strategy. Somebody else has got, can you? The consultants have put together a strategy on the whole site basis. We're going to look at plots individually.
Mr. Goatley, I have written Mr. Richard Garvey on Zoom, I think. Thomas, is he in the Zoom attendance, sir?
I do not have Richard Garvey, I'm afraid.
You do not have Richard Garvey in attendance, therefore that will be a written answer. Do you have Alison May in attendance on Zoom, please, sir?
I apologise. We have someone called Southwark United.
Whoever Southwark United are, will you please announce yourself and your name, please? You've joined the meeting as Southwark United. And we are trying to establish if you are Mr. Richard Garvey or Miss Alison May. If you are neither, I'm going to give a written answer to Alison May.
They've left.
Southwark United have gone off to a football match. And we don't have Alison May, is that correct?
Yes.
No, Chairman.
So it's not correct.
We don't have any.
We don't have Alison May. Thank you very much. A written answer to Alison May. Next one up, Gareth Beard. Do we have a Gareth Beard in Zoom, Thomas?
No, we do not, Chairman.
Moving right along, that'll be another written answer. But we do have a Paul Morgan. I hope your back's all right. Oh, it's your hip. Okay. Good evening to you. And this is to Nigel Foot.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Morgan. Thank you for your inquiry. A specific budget was set up for the enhancement of the open space on Faraday Road to return this to football use. This will be supplemented from capital to deliver the playing pitch strategy and to undertake a detailed design into the delivery of a 3G pitch this year. Future expenditure will be dependent on successful capital bids through the council's capital allocation process. Do you have a supplementary question?
I don't believe you answered the question, unfortunately. So what budget has it come from? That's my question. Let me give you, is it coming from the plan protection plan or Newbury Sports Hub or another budget? Which budget is it coming from? Thank you.
Sorry, could you just repeat that? I didn't quite
Yes,
get.
it's a simple question. Which budget is it coming from? For example, is it coming from the plan pitch action plan, Newbury Sports Hub or another budget? Which budget is that money
Councillor
coming from?
Foot, I'm going to intervene here because a £230,000 Spencer and £174 million budget, we don't always keep in our heads which budget line it's from. I'm going to ask Mr. Holmes, for some clarification, please.
Thank you.
I say thank you, councillor. We have to give a written response on that one.
All right.
No problem.
Surely every
No,
project.
no, Mr. Morgan,
Oh,
please.
This is unbelievable.
Please,
Really.
you'll get a written answer. Mr. Pearce.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Pearce. We're really delighted to have reintroduced football to Faraday Road and will continue to work to improve the quality of the grass pitch for football use. A feasibility study will now be undertaken to inform options for further development of the ground. The outcome of this study will inform the refresh of the playing pitch strategy. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, can you give assurance that within the next 2 years, a new community stadium, a sports stadium with a new pitch and enhanced stadium facilities will be built and fully operational as promised by the limit? That was the question. So can you confirm it will be?
Thank you. What I can confirm is that feasibility studies are being done, and they will inform how the delivery of the budget and things for the Faraday Road ground will be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. I do have a supplementary question, and it's.
Was it? However, I'm going to give some latitude. I'll give you a little bit of latitude.
Thank you. In the next report on the bond update, it says 6.6 says, however, the scope of what that project may become and its timeline has not yet been identified. So I think we can say is there's no plan at the moment for this stadium at Faraday Road to come back.
Okay, so I'm going to pick this up because you, Mr. Pearce, sat in a meeting about three weeks ago where we talked about the exigencies, the needs of this project. So you know the answer to this. You know that we're going out for a design statement on the potential for an artificial pitch, be it 3G or 4G. You know that.
Yeah.
You know that there is another meeting next week, Thursday, when I expect to be able to announce to the NCFG and in Newbury Football Club what we think we can do in the short term and the medium term. And I'm not really going to rehearse it in public now until we've got agreement of those parties. We will be jumping the gun.
Can I just hold you?
No, I think I've given you a fair bit of latitude on this, and I think you're really asking questions ahead of time. I'm not sure what you're wishing.
It's because it was because of my concern of that meeting, the minutes of the meeting that we had on the 30th, and it was a comments with the view of the CEO on the 3G pitch at Faraday Road, which is concerning me. That's why I brought the question. But we'll see the minutes.
You'll see the minutes if you're past the minutes. We meet again on the 30th of this month, next week, Thursday morning at 9 o'clock, and we will take things forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have Miss Saunderson on Zoom, please?
Ms Saunderson is present.
Splendid. So, Councillor Sturgis, if you could answer the question up on the screen, please. Next one, please, Thomas. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, Mrs Saunderson. Thank you for your question.
Good evening.
We're very happy to share the Ardent Sustainable Drainage Strategy with the Newbury Flood and Drainage Forum, and I'll ask officers to do that for you. A plan was referenced in the June 2022 executive report, but it was actually produced in 2023. So that's why it wasn't included as part of that 2022 report.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. I think it will stop a few questions coming forward.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs Saunderson.
Splendid. We have Mr Goatley for Councillor Stuart Gawley.
Thank you, Mr Goatley, for your question. It's not clear from the geo-environmental report what the source of the pollution within the Bond Riverside is. Therefore, it's not possible to say if current or past tenants have contributed. I can assure you that redevelopment of the site would be accompanied with the appropriate levels of remediation. Do you have a supplementary?
Very quick one. Has any action been taken to see where the polluters are? There's many car sites on that industrial estate, servicing cars, and the pollution is basically related to vehicles. So it would be a fair conclusion that some of your tenants are the polluters.
As I mentioned before, we've got the results, and it's not possible to say from those whether current or past tenants have contributed to that pollution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Has Mr Garvey arrived in the Zoom? Thomas?
No, Chairman.
Thank you. Has Miss May arrived in the Zoom?
No, Chairman.
We're on to M. Alan Pearce to Vicky Paul.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr Pearce. The accommodation review was agreed for inclusion, excuse me, as one of the 6 projects to be led by the newly appointed Service Director for Transformation, which was agreed at Executive in September. The review will consider the review will consider all wholly council-owned and controlled sites, of which the depot site is one, and develop a cohesive asset strategy for all of them. This strategy will aim to consolidate the council's estate and identify opportunities for efficiencies, savings or capital receipts, while also enhancing the experience of customers accessing these sites. No specific plans have been made to date, but as the depot site is owned by the council and is not subject to lease agreements, it is appropriate to review its use through the accommodation review. You have a supplementary, sir. Mike, please.
Yeah, just a clarification. With that review, then we'll be looking at possibly building new council offices, buildings on there for office staff, council staff. Would that be right? Is that a possibility?
At this point, it's too early to say within the programme. I do know that the review is ongoing.
But you're looking at that possibility of maybe.
No, here you go again, see? You've had your supplementary, now you're going in for another bite of the cherry. The other thing to remember, sir, I'm sorry to jump in.
Sure.
Is this council has to do a lot of work before it can make any real public statements. And you seem to be trying to tease out of us what we're going to do well before we considered it. Now, think about it another way, sir. You've got a personal interest of where you live in terms of that area. We got 1,500 staff who have a personal interest in our accommodation review. I think it's fair to them to make sure we do all of the work before we make any public utterances whatsoever. So we're not going to be drawn any further, Mr. Pearce.
Yeah, I was generally trying to understand things. I wasn't trying to, I struggled to understand the answer. So I was trying to clarify, but I take your point.
And I'm trying to clarify for you, you're not going to tease out of us any sort of statements that make us a hostage to fortune when we haven't done the work. Thank you very much. Okay, what am I on to? Am I on to? And Paula Saunderson back in the room. Your next question, please, which is question N.
Thank you for your question, Ms Saunderson. So the London Road Industrial Estates Designated Employment Area, the DEA, is an area of land designated within the local plan for business use. The area includes the majority of the council-owned land, which is now known as Bond Riverside, as well as the adjoining River Park Industrial Estate, but the DEA excludes the football grounds. During the preparation of the local plan review, the council, as landowner, had made representations during the Regulation 19 consultation to extend the DEA to include the Faraday Road football ground. However, this proposal was not taken forward in the submitted version of the local plan review, which is why the map you refer to does not include the football ground as part of the designated employment area. The report tonight proposes to withdraw the council's representations to the local plan review, making clear to the inspector examining the local plan that the council has since changed its approach to the football ground and it's no longer available for employment development. Do you have a supplementary?
The statements that you made in your response are not reflected in the submitted document. So I don't think you need to worry too much, but I understand why you're undertaking the protocol. Now that we have a plot by plot approach, the document attached to your document tonight has a red line round it. Would it not be more appropriate to put a blue line round this land now that it's not one planning application? In planning terms, the red line has a different meaning, and I think we now need to change this to a blue line, which would be more helpful for everybody.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms Saunderson. I'll definitely take a look at that in terms of changing the colour.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're on to O now, I think, Mr Goatley again, to Councillor Gawley.
Cool. Thanks again, Mr Goatley, for your question. I'm pleased to let you know that the construction of the A339 junction with Fleming Road included mitigation measures to attenuate the flow from the additional impermeable surface. I can there inform you that as the additional flow is fully mitigated, no compensation is due. Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes. The addition of extra impermeable surface still creates more water coming up. Quite a lot about betterment on industrial estate. Now, we've had a whole lot of worsements. So we've had Cinch, we've had the junction, we've had Newbury Electronics. we've had Bayer, all increasing the amount of surface water runoff. So with regard to betterment, where's the benchmark?
So I believe your question was with regard to the A339 junction, and therefore I'm going to address that part specifically. And actually, you know, I believe you've had the plans for that. And the betterment that was done at that junction was around increasing the size of the pipes beneath the road construction to act as additional storage and attenuate the flow. So there is betterment at that 339 junction. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Miss May not arrived in Zoom, Thomas.
They have not arrived.
Thank you. Paul Morgan again, sir. This is question Q.
May I ask the question before we get onto that? My question L regarding the 25 million Public Works Loan Board has been skipped. I guess that's because the portfolio holder's not here. Why is that? My question has been skipped?
Yeah, no, that's correct. The portfolio holder is not in the meeting, and so you'll be getting a written response to that question.
Can I just make a point? Why can't somebody else answer that? Because it's a very important question.
We've chosen not to, sir.
Why?
We've chosen not to, and the portfolio holder will write to you. Can we get on with this one? Question Q.
Again, it's finance related stuff. It's very bothering. Yes, we can get on to the next question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. In answer to your question, Mr. Morgan, number one, part one, the fencing work was completed at the end of January, and this meant that the facility was then available for allocation to local teams. Officers had a meeting at Faraday Road with CSA and Procision to discuss their use of the pitch from February onwards. The suggested amendment can therefore be made.
Thank you.
For your second point, with regards to the question concerning the previous NCFG planning application, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to speculate on what might have happened following a decision taken by the previous administration. I'll therefore respectfully decline to answer that part of your question. Do you have a supplementary, please?
Yes, so I'll keep it very brief. It's a concern that you said a long-term aspiration for the Faraday Road Stadium. Why is it long-term when it should be short-term? This is in your manifesto and your strategy. So why is it taking so long to actually come up with a detailed plan for the provision of the replacement stadium at Faraday Road? That's my question.
Hold on, before you answer, Councillor Foote, before you answer, I think our Executive Director of Place may want to say something, please.
Thank you. Yes, well, the council's strategy actually states that the council will work with the local stakeholders to identify a plan for the end of 2024.
Yes, and where's the plan? We're in 2024. Where's the plan? That's my question.
The end of 2024.
So you're saying committing there's going to be a plan for a stadium by the end of 2024?
Mr. Morgan,
I just want to get clarification, that's all. I'm not being awkward.
I'm going to refer you to the answer I gave to Mr. Pearce. You were in the meeting that we had 3 weeks ago, and we have another meeting next week on the 30th. There is a steering group, sir. So I'm not concerned. Excuse me, sir, excuse me. I'm a bit puzzled at your disquiet that you bring questions here, which you're fully entitled to do, that you know what you can address through the NCFG next week, Thursday. So that is when those answers will come forth, will be agreed, and then there will be public statements about them. And again, I'm not going to be a hostage to fortune in here when there is a program of activity. I was the one who introduced the steering group, so we had the momentum to get these questions answered.
I hear you, but unfortunately the steering group is not answering the question I've asked for on Mr. Pearce. So thank you for your time anyway.
Yeah, I'm back to Ms. Saunderson on question R, please.
Thank you for your question, Ms. Saunderson. So the strategic flood risk assessment submitted as part of the local plan process includes a cumulative impacts assessment, which can be viewed on the council's website. This includes a catchment level assessment of cumulative impacts of development of flood risk. In addition, the flood risk impact of individual developments will be considered as part of the planning application process. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, so the Ardent Sustainable Drainage Strategy for Bond Riverside presumably covers that part of the London Road Estates DEA, whereas the Gateway Plaza would have a little bit in there and a bit outside of that. So I'm just a little concerned that we might have some gaps somewhere, because this all goes into a much wider catchment area. So maybe once we've reviewed the first paper, we can come back to you with a couple of questions. Would that be okay?
Yes, that's what I was going to suggest, Mrs. Saunderson. If you look at the report that we'll be sending through, and then we can review again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Goatley, this is S.
Thank you again for your question, Mr. Goatley. Any planning application that meets the threshold of environmental impact assessment regulations will of course be screened. Do you have a supplementary?
Well, isn't it automatically a development of that size? You're not allowed to salami slice it, which is what appears to be happening there. So aren't you courting disaster without an EIA? Because people will go against it law-wise.
If an EIA is required, an EIA will take place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
And then I have T from Ms. Saunderson again, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Saunderson. So the report submitted to executive under item 6 is designed to be high level and outlines the proposed management and governance to the Bond Riverside programme moving forward. So it doesn't go into specific details such as pollution, but the project team are aware of these issues and will give them due consideration during the life of the programme and the project. Do you have a supplementary?
So we can expect to see little chunks of work in the project work plans in relation to the pollution of the aquifers and of the North Brook?
There's actually discussion about these areas at EAG on Tuesday night, and a paper is going to be brought forward with recommendations through the executive. So I'm sure we'll see some of these points covered through that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Saunderson, we have a question to you, final one, bring that up on the screen, and back to Councillor Sturgis, please.
Thank you, Ms. Saunderson. So the strategic flood risk assessment submitted as part of the local plan states at the planning application stage, a site-specific flood risk assessment and surface water drainage strategy will be required. Therefore, any application submitted will need to demonstrate how flood risk and surface water is managed. It will also need to take into account the sustainable drainage strategy produced by Ardent. Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, that's why I think it's important to remove that red line, because if you're looking at a plot by plot and that level, the strategic flood risk assessment, level 1, appendix 1 is all about cumulative impact assessment, but it doesn't have a methodology in it. So unless there's a methodology in the first paper that we referred to, we're missing an understanding of how that cumulative impact will be assessed. And because it's not just Bond Riverside, there's other bits in that London Road London Road Estates DEA.
Yeah.
Is there a question in there?
So yeah, I think I'll write to somebody, probably planning, and ask what the methodology is for doing cumulative impact assessment, where a series of plot by plot developments are coming forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Saunderson.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was about 28 minutes. Thank you, everybody, for keeping that brief, and we got through all of them, which is commendable, I think, on everybody. Item 5 is petitions. Are there any petitions this evening?
No, none that I'm aware of.
Very good. Then we're into the reports proper, but I am going to bring one forward. I'm going to bring item 11 forward, the care experience. And I think Councillor Heather Codling will introduce this. I believe this is because we've got a young person in the chamber tonight.
No, I think they're online, actually.
They're online. Very good. So the floor is yours then, please. Item 11.
Oh. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I would like to, I'm not going to speak long on this, but because we did cover it quite fully at full council recently, but I'd just like to reiterate a couple of things about the experience of people who have been in care, a couple of items, 70% of people who have been in care die earlier than would otherwise be expected. Over half of those in custody at the age of 21 have been in care, and a quarter of the homeless population in England and Wales have experience of the care system. So this council is recognising this as a protected characteristic. And what we're also going to do is to encourage, as responsible corporate parents, we're going to work hard to seek the support of other organisations across West Berkshire to help them understand the value that the children we care for will bring to their organisations. We will work with them to explore the opportunities that may be created if they to adopt protected characteristic status for care experienced young people within their organisations. I so propose, Chair.
Sorry, does that find a seconder?
Happy to second, Leader.
Councillor Gawley, and you'll speak later if you wish to. Okay. I don't have anybody else, I think, from the executive wishing to speak. I look across the chamber. Councillor McKinnon, good evening.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brooks, and thank you, Councillor Codling. You're quite right. You mentioned that we spent a bit of time at full council debating a motion on this, and now we find ourselves at the executive deciding to implement that. Was that council motion really necessary, Councillor Codling, and could this executive paper simply have been brought here to this executive without that motion being brought forward to full council?
Through you, Chair. Yes, I think it was, because I think we needed to actually highlight this to the public and also emphasise to those children in our care that we're doing everything we can. And the more publicity we can get for this, the better. And it actually brings it to a wider audience.
Thank you for that, Councillor Codling. There are very, by the way, I don't dispute the worthiness of the item. There are other items on the agenda tonight, such as the Armed Forces Covenant, which the executive has not found necessary to put a motion to full council. Is that not worthy of greater awareness to the public than this one?
I think I'd like to come back. You could have these somewhat subjective discussions on just about every motion to council, Councillor McKinnon. We chose to do it that way, so.
So what did it achieve, Leader?
It achieved what we wanted it to.
It's a very opaque answer, but I will take that as it's given. Councillor Codling, again, what discrimination to care experienced people experience from this council that this proposal is designed to remedy?
I don't know that I have any specifics to hand.
I guess let me word it a different way. We on the opposition side fully support anything that the administration want to do to enhance the opportunities to care experienced people. And I would urge the administration to do everything in its power to do just that. I'm just wondering what this precise move will actually achieve specifically.
Well, for instance, young people who have come through care often have lower qualifications because they've not been able to finish school or have not done all the schooling that you would normally expect. And I would like to think that any young person who has been in our care would get an interview for a job, even if they weren't quite right for it on paper, and that we could then help them through with further education. There are various things that we could do like that.
Fully support that, Councillor Codling. Thank you for that answer. But will this proposal here actually achieve that? Can we not just simply do that anyway? I think is my answer.
I think we can now, but this is also a recognition of the inequalities to those young people.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Codling. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak? I think we're probably okay to go to a vote on this. Did you wish to speak?
Sorry, yes.
Sorry, please do, sir.
I will, yeah. As second, I think, I'm proud to second this and continue to raise the awareness of, characteristics which can perhaps be overlooked or not necessarily recognised, and to enhance that is important. I think the question about whether there are cases of discrimination that have been noted, so much discrimination goes on in this world without it ever being noted. You know, I look at myself, I'm a middle-aged, I hate to say that, I know I look a lot younger, middle-aged white guy, straight, married, 2 children. How many blind sides do I have in my life that I need to continually hone and make myself more socially aware and awake to these things? So by bringing this to Vera Motion, to executive, it really raises that, and I hope that people will recognise this more and look out for it, where potential discrimination might happen subconsciously. Yes, and that's really all I wanted to say, and I think it's great that we've enhanced the reputation. I'm glad it's going to, you know, be a protected characteristic, and I hope that it raises the awareness and people will go away and read more about it and find out how to avoid things in the future. So thank you, Leader.
I think it's rather difficult to end up saying I'm no longer middle-aged because it says now I'm old-aged. At 59, I thought I was middle-aged, but I didn't expect to live to 118. Anyway, I digress. Councillor Codling, did you want to just sum up the paper?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think a lot of us, particularly the women in here, will have been discriminated in some way or other. And that's a fairly obvious discrimination. And young people in care, you know, they're not able to necessarily fight back. I think, you know, I'm able to answer for myself. These people can't necessarily. So I just really want to promote this.
Grateful to you, and I'm now going to put it to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Got that?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Carried.
And then we come on to we go back to our running order. Number 6, the Bond Riverside Programme Review, page 19 on your papers. And Councillor Sturgis to introduce, please. No, done that.
Thank you, Chair. So this report proposes a new approach for managing the regeneration of the largely council-owned Bond Riverside estate and closing down the existing programme, which has run from June 2022. Under the proposal, key sites will be treated as discrete projects for council-led regeneration or enhancement and managed as part of the wider Newbury Town Centre Master Plan programme. These include Gateway Plaza, specifically plots B, C and D in the appendix, Faraday Road Sports Grounds and the depot site, along with looking to improve the public realm and connections with the town centre. A Newbury Project Board working committee will be set up to provide oversight to the Newbury Town Centre Master Plan, including the identified Bond Riverside sites. The board will also support other non-council owned regeneration in Newbury where appropriate and will be officer-led and focused on delivery. The new Project Board will report up through the Prosperous and Resilient West Berkshire Delivery Board and through the Corporate Programme Board, along with other corporate programmes projects. The new approach will help to improve coordination and a holistic planning across sites in Newbury and make more efficient use of council resources. Newbury Town Council will continue to chair the Newbury Town Centre Master Plan Steering Committee, and the two councils will continue to collaborate and pool efforts where needed to help deliver the master plan vision. With regards to the other sites on Bond Riverside, the council will continue to engage with existing leaseholders and tenants to discuss their aspirations for the future. As Faraday Road will now remain a sports ground, this report also proposes that the council withdraws its Regulation 19 representations as landowner to the local plan review, which had looked to extend the LRIE designated employment zone to include Faraday Road. In terms of finance, the proposal is not asking for additional funding, and further detail is outlined in the document.
Very much, and that has a seconder, please. You're proposing that a seconder in Councillor Gaines. Do you wish to speak at this stage?
No, Leah.
Okay.
I reserve my right.
Anybody else on the executive benches? No, I put it over to Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brooks, and thank you, Councillor Sturgis, for introducing this report. Councillor Sturgis, as you're aware and as the report makes clear, the previous administration's plans for the Faraday Road pitch was for very prompt commercial development and the generation of hundreds and hundreds of jobs. The fact that the new Liberal administration has decided not to progress with that, how can that possibly be consistent with a desire to develop the economy of the district as stated in your council strategy?
Well, Councillor McKinnon, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the site hasn't been regenerated or anything has happened on it for about 15 years. We're very much committed to the regeneration of the site and for providing employment opportunities, and setting up this new programme structure will enable us to move through with that. Obviously, it's important that we plan things carefully and take the correct steps.
Thank you, Councillor Sturgis. Thank you, Leader. The plan from the previous administration was to develop the Faraday Road football pitch to generate hundreds of jobs in the next 2 to 3 years. I'm not interested in the last 15 years. I'm interested in the here and now and the jobs and the economic prospects of our residents. So how can that be consistent with developing the economy as stated in your council strategy? What's going to happen? Where's the compensatory job? Where's the compensatory job creation elsewhere on the site?
So we recognise the importance of providing land for employment use, Councillor McKinnon, but we know that post-COVID we're still looking at a pretty uncertain future. The EIP, as you know, is looking at employment on the 12th of June, so we need to see what the outcome is. As things stand, there's going to be a need to look at employment land across the whole of the district, and Riverside is going to be looked at in the round. I'll also say that in terms of Faraday Road, the development of the stadium is going to bring more footfall into the area. It's going to bring more spend, so it is going to help support the local economy as well.
I've got Councillor Wollaston on Zoom, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. As I was involved in my career for a number of years in similar schemes dotted around the UK, my experience is that a piecemeal approach does not work. It needs vision. It needs a master developer. Someone can actually drive the thing forward. And with respect, neither West Berkshire Council nor Newbury Town Council have any experience in this area. So I would urge you to rethink what you're doing.
Councillor Wollaston, I'll take that up and I'll bring Councillor Sturgis back afterwards. Do you know, I've been listening to people about this site for probably 15 years. I think your administration tried to do a holistic, joined up, full development, and we haven't got anywhere. So we're thinking that a more step-by-step, stage-by-stage approach may work where that one failed. So I hear what you say, sir, and I appreciate your experience, but so far we haven't made much progress with whatever strategy we had to date. Councillor Sturgis, do you want to add anything to that?
No, thank you, Chair. I was just going to say that I think a phased approach was actually recommended in the June 2022 executive report as well, to help mitigate the risk of a wholesale development approach to the council.
Very useful. Thank you. Very helpful. Councillor,
May I come back, Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I have said I was involved in the steering group for this for 4 years, and I was consistent in my view that the approach that the previous administration was following was incorrect, and we do need someone who knows what they're doing. We do need any prospective occupiers to know what's going to happen going forward. And a piecemeal development is doomed to failure.
I really respect your input, and we'll certainly, as we look to the future, make sure we get the expertise we need to help us with it. That is the assurance I can give you, sir. Councillor Gaines, did you want to add?
No, I think Councillor Sturgis has pretty much covered it. Thanks,
Thank you very much. I'm going to move on and ask executive members, we have a proposal, we have a seconder. Oh, did you indicate? Yeah, okay.
Somewhat late in the day, I apologise for that, Councillor Leader. I do have a question. I know we're not here to debate, but as just an observation really, all this talk about extra jobs and so forth, we've got a huge unsightly and environmentally damaging self-storage warehouse that employs a handful of people. That's all we've had in all these years. So I wish you well with this new proposal, because I'm a fan of the master plan for the town centre, and I think it's a good idea to incorporate them. I just have a question about the master plan, which is where are we with it? Because to me, it does feel that given that that was several years ago now that that was adopted, we haven't seen much progress from it either under the previous administration or the new one. So there's been some talk about work at the wharf, but not much else. And there were a lot of quick wins in that report, which haven't been implemented at all. So could somebody tell me what the vision is for implementing the vision, including this new bit now? It's going to have the Bond Riverside included with it.
I'm going to bring Councillor Sturgis back in a moment. I think when you say several years, it was about 3 years, but nevertheless, we are looking to try and accelerate that. But bear in mind, there's a lot of stakeholders involved, and that needs, you know, drawing together so you have some consensus. But Councillor Sturgis.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. So first of all, in terms of the wharf, we've been waiting on the Environment Agency to come back on a planning application for that. That should be imminent. So we're hoping that the work is going to start this year. It is grant funded, so it does have to be done within a specific timeframe. So that should be moving forward imminently. We're hoping for that. In terms of how the Newbury Master Plan is going to be delivered overall, there is a delivery plan for each of those areas. Some of them are wholly West Berkshire delivered. A lot of it is working obviously very closely with Newbury Town Council and looking at what they're able to deliver as well. So, but I can assure you there is a plan that sits behind all of this.
Great, thank you.
I think, members, we can now go to the vote, and let's do so, please. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Got that?
It's been carried, thank
Okay.
you.
Moving on then, the next one is the Local Government Association Corporate Peer Challenge. In introducing this, I think I want to make sure people understand what a peer challenge is, because it sounds very local government or public sector. And it's probably the 4th time we've done this as a council, inviting officers and members from other councils to come in and do a review of how we operate. It's an intense process. It's done over the course of a week. A report comes out and we consider that. On pages 33 and 34, I'll draw your attention to some things that we seem to be doing okay and other things we need to address. We've done it. Good to see you, Mr. Pearce. We've done it quite rapidly in our tenure as a new administration, within 9 months or so, or 10 months of taking over. So we can get that benefit, we can get those lessons, if you like, and we can respond to them. Now, on page 33, I'm really pleased. These are not my words. This is within the peer review. They felt some examples of strengths included a noticeably changed approach to ways of working brought by the new administration that are more inclusive, more open, and more visible. I take some pride in that. That we did come up with a prompt production of an ambitious council strategy. That we have made permanent appointments to all corporate leadership teams posts. That team can now really start to motor as it gets bedded in. And so you can go along this, down those points. I'll pick out one more and then I'll go on to some of the things, the net recommendations. A less risk-averse council launching a transformation program with dedicated resource to lead this activity. I think a couple of the peer challenge reports over the last eight years or so have talked about the council being quite risk averse. I think risk is always got to be managed and you've got to be careful, but I think we can be more ambitious and bold. And this seems to be saying that we are getting a bit like that. We need to urgently address overspending in children's adult services. This can really blow us off course within the course of a budget year. We've just started another budget year and we're watching that like hawks. We've got to build our reserves back. That isn't any sort of criticism of anybody, but the reserves are low and we have to build them back. We've got challenges in the SEND programme. We need to strengthen the corporate leadership team and get more comments and involvement by the team below, the service directors. We've got to probably prioritise what we can do, given our financial constraints, certainly this year and perhaps into next. And of course, don't forget, with the possible change of government, funding will be looked at again for councils. So there's uncertainties ahead of us. We need to simplify our governance structure. This is the way we make decisions. Are we over elaborating and taking too long for certain basic decisions to come through rapidly? Something we've charged the chief executive to sort out. So again, I'm picking up certain points from page 34, 33 and 34. And we do seem to have good operational relationships with partners to be built on. You can never have too many, they can never be perfect. But again, within this, develop a strategic MOU, memorandum of understanding with voluntary and community sector. Things we can do some of them quite rapidly, move transformation to a much more central position within the council. A lot of it operational, organisational, and not necessarily costing a lot of money. So we're grateful for this report, and we think it helps us show the way ahead very well. It's a noted item, so we're not going to vote on it. I'm very happy to take any comments from both sides of the chamber. I'm looking at the executive now. I'm looking at the leader of the opposition.
Thank you, Leader of the Council. You focused there on a part of the report which sort of praised, I think, the new administration for making some changes, and I'm not surprised that you focused on that. That's I'd have done the same thing as well if I was in your position. But overall, this is a good thing to do, isn't it? The peer review. I remember I was only elected in 2019, but we went through a very similar exercise, I think, round about the same time in the administration. And it really does give senior officers mainly, a bit of guidance, but it's good for members to have a part in this process as well. It gives us a really good steer just to how we can improve, because certainly when I was elected, and it remains the case, that West Berkshire is seen amongst its peers as being a very good and well-run council. And I think we can all be proud of that. And this is a really good exercise to do. And the report is really encouraging in lots of areas. And I would say that, well, Leader, you focused on the recent changes. I think a lot of the things in this report make me very happy about the performance of the previous administration in the last 4 years. But that's as political as I'm going to get here. Instead, I want to say, look, I agree with you in terms of the overspending in children's and adult social care. It is a huge issue. And if we'd been re-elected, we would have been facing the same thing. And I'm genuinely pleased to see that you don't make a political knockabout issue of that. It's an issue that councils are facing across the country. And it's something that we'll certainly support you in your attempts to deal with. I wanted to make just actually again, a bit of a plea. On page 25 of the report, I did spot that a point was made up about concerning examples of sexist comments being made to women amongst the organisation. Now, of course, we can't go into specifics here. I wouldn't dream of it. I suspect the leader knows a bit more about that than the report goes into, as is proper. I want him to assure me that he's going to look into that and address it if it needs to be addressed. And I'll leave my comments there. Thank you.
I'm going to give you more than assurance. It's already been looked into. I have made some statements to officers about it. I have reiterated that it's not tolerable and won't be tolerated. And I don't expect to see that comment again in future peer reviews.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brooks.
Now, this will lead, I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Stewart. This will lead to an action plan. We will need to state what we're going to do about all those recommendations. The chief executive continually says to me when I get a bit overambitious, he said, don't forget the peer review. He said, we're trying to do too much. So he's using it. He rolls it up, I think, and hits me with it occasionally in all its paperwork. they will come back and review us again. You know this because it happened on your watch. A little bit like Grand Designs, you know, Kevin McLeod comes back and says, how you got on with your building and how's it looking a year later? So we need to address it. December, we need to have got an action plan and shown some progress. We don't need to, but we should if we're taking our medicine properly. And you'll be seeing more reports about this in the future. Sorry, Councillor Stewart, please go ahead.
That's quite all right. Thank you, Chairman. I won't sort of extend the point too much. And congratulations on a good report. It's clearly there's some really good stuff already going on, so that's brilliant. There is one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about. Certainly the point that Councillor McKinnon raised. I'm really pleased you've just addressed that. In terms of those comments, but simplify the governance structure to increase pace and agility. Now that is something that we, as the previous administration, had picked up and had put forward a proposal for shall we call it a more efficient and perhaps simpler way forward in terms of that internal governance. And I think it's sort of disappointing to see that this is still being discussed. I'm really hoping that you can get on top of it, because you've got some really huge challenges to deliver. And if some of those decisions are caught up in really lengthy administration and conversation, then I'm afraid that you may find that you're going to fall foul of that. So that would be my only warning.
I think the officers won't find anybody more impatient than me to get on with stuff and get it done. I'm constantly saying, what on earth? Get it done. Just do it. What did Churchill say? Action this day. Well, I'm not Churchillian, but I do want action this day. There was a review and adjustment to the governance programme, Councillor Stewart. I don't think it needs a huge overhaul, but I do think it needs tuning, and the Chief Executive is working on it. But believe me, the danger you describe is not unheard of by me. You know, it's certainly. But again, you know, we are getting used to the checks and balances that exist in the public sector, and the need to make sure that you have a good, robust scrutiny before the policy is introduced, as well as scrutiny, which, by the way, was spoke of well within the report and how it's working as the policy goes through the process of being implemented. But you make a very good point, and believe me, I've stamped my feet now and again with frustration at the length of time that some things take, as you will have done as well, I feel sure.
I can't believe that at all, Chairman. But
thank you very much. Okay, so I think we're noting that item, members. I don't need a vote on noting. The next one is the community infrastructure levy exemptions for householders. It's another step, and a major step, in the journey to resolve some issues we've had around this. I'm not going to go back into the detail of it. What we have before you tonight is an enforcement policy which talks about how we will recover debts that are due, fees that should have been levied and must be collected. It also has a process for householders who would believe that they were charged when their paperwork was not completed correctly or provided on time. It shows a process where they can apply for their personal situation to be reviewed. It's all there in the householders refund policy. And I give an assurance, if this passes this evening, that by June the 1st, there will be application forms online on our website. Mrs. Lawrence is nodding. June the 1st, and I'm looking at you now, Mrs. Dobson, you will be able to go online. You provided a huge amount of information to me. I don't think you need to do that all again. I've got it all upstairs, but I do need your application form. It's appropriate that an application form comes in with a background. We've got probably a dozen that I'm aware of at the moment. And we do need supporting information on those. The process is also documented in terms of who will review it, members and an officer will review the information, take a decision, make the appellant aware, and there will be make the application, the people doing the applicant aware, and then there will be an appeal process when they would turn into an appellant if they don't agree with what we have described. There's a few little details to look at on this. We've talked about an amount of time, how quickly we could turn it around. And we've said 20 working days. I think with the election suddenly hoving into view and the demands on our staff here to manage the election, the 20 days may be a little bit ambitious. I also want to look a little bit further on the retrospective application aspect. But this evening, we are setting out how people can apply for refunds. This is a tidying up exercise, but also putting something right that I believe was wrong. Do I have a seconder for this report, please?
I second that, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Gaines. Does anybody from the executive wish to speak? And from the opposition? Councillor McKinnon.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Brooks. I had a look at Appendix 3 with some interest. It looks like actually a very good process for assessing these claims. I have one question and then I guess one request for assurance really. In Appendix 3, talking about the process, it says that householders will be reimbursed in the case of a genuine error, either in the case of the council or in the case of the householder. Now, the process seems very, very objective up to that point, and it's just a question of how is the panel, this might be something you want to get back to me later on actually, Councillor Brooks, but how will the panel decide what's a genuine error and what isn't, and what's not a genuine error? You might choose to answer that now, you might choose to revert to me. And then my question really is an assurance that what the council is planning or what the administration is planning on doing, can you assure me that that does comply in full with the civil legislation as currently in force?
So your first one is about the subjectivity of the application. And I think I've said clearly that where the householder, by filling in the forms correctly, would have had a zero assessment, then that guides us as to whether the refund is appropriate. So I think it's not as subjective as you might suggest or have a concern about. You're a householder, you apply, you've got some forms incorrect, and you're served with a bill that is chased down to collection or not collected yet, but a deed against your charge against your property. These are the ones we need to look at. Your second one about this council has the discretionary powers to decide that it can put right what we believe was a wrong. I'm not going to be drawn into it. I made a statement last time. We are using those discretionary powers.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks.
Somner.
You looked at me there, Leader, as though you were expecting my hand to go. It's quite strange. Thank you for the opportunity. There are a few things that I've noted, some observations, some questions. One thing that I did note in the BOS report is that it says that this is not a failing service. And I think that is a point that needs to be made because it isn't a failing service. There might be interpretation of how officers have enacted the rule set, but the rule set is there, it's legislative and it's been followed. And I think that's an observation that's worth making for everybody to be aware of. SIL is a function of planning. And I believe under the Constitution, planning is a function of the council and not the function of the executive. So here we are again in the executive meeting debating something which I'm not actually sure should be sitting in this forum. I'll let you take that one away and deal with it accordingly because it's here and we therefore are. From question point of view, I'd like to know whether it talks about equality and equity, and I'd like to know whether the council intends to address any commercial residential development or non-residential development. Because at the moment, this is very much focused on everything outside of that. I'd like to know whether the council will be seeking to pull money back from town parish councils who have received their 15% given to them from the original receipts, where the challenge is upheld, obviously. No,
I'm right.
I know you are. I know you are. There, on page 171, number 12, it states that the request for review must be received within 10 working days. Now, noting your comments about lateness, what happens if we are late again? What happens if we have repeat offenders? And I don't use that term lightly, but I think it's a term to use fairly. I'll probably stop there. I'd say that, you know, there are many other things within the report about the governance of it, and I think that will probably come out. But I just very finally want to pick up on one last thing, and that's the question about whether this needs to be changed, noting the comments that you've just made about 20 days not being able to be met, because it does actually state that in the document. So we need to revise it before it can be voted on, I think.
I'm not sure about that, because there are some minor changes of detail. Let's pick up some of your points. I'll take advice. I've taken advice right the way through this, and I've ended up here in executive resolving it. So the monitoring officer, I would presume, on my right-hand side, is comfortable with the process we're following. She may wish to say something. But you know, the length of time people have been waiting for some resolution on this is years and years and years. And I want to get this fixed and sorted as quickly as possible so those people get what they should really have got, Councillor Sommer. They should have got a sense of help to get to the position they should have got to, sir, which is zero assessment. And the longer we prolong this, the longer we prolong their pain. Now, you may choose to try and do that. You may call it in. But it will be on you if you prolong that, help prolong that pain. And I'm sorry to be pointed like this. I'll pick up the other points. This is about householders. I made it very clear in my statement on March the 14th, I think it was. It's about householders who applied to build an extension, an annex, or a dwelling to live in themselves. And they would have to live in it for 3 years afterwards, according to legislation. So I don't think there's a development aspect to it, sir. Within the paperwork, it says we do not intend to claw back from the town and parish councils. It's in there, Councillor Somner, okay? The 10 working days has eluded me, and Mrs. Lawrence.
Okay, so that's actually after the review. So the initial review is rejected by the CIL review committee, by leader and the executive director. They have 10 working days to actually put through a submission to be heard at the committee.
And Councillor Sommer, you urged us to consider that might be a bit longer. Then that's the sort of detail we could adapt in flight. I'd, as in the 20 days as well, particularly as I say, when the exigencies of the general election come along to give us some issues. The other thing I would say about this is, and POS said this, the Planning Operational Service, they turned around and said, you've got 2 people dedicated to checking all this, and their job is to collect no money whatsoever if they've done it right. And they said, you really could do, it's in the paperwork, you could do a lighter touch and redeploy those people within the planning service to make sure you get as maximum or help others get as maximum planning fees in as possible. So look at how you're deploying resource that you could use elsewhere and probably get more money in as a result of it, because where they are working, the end result is probably not to get any money at all. So the working practices were a bit chonky, if that's the right word, in what we were doing anyway. This takes us forward. This puts people, can put some people's lives together again, because Councillor Sumner, I'm sorry to prolong this. We're not talking about £1,000, £2,000, £3,000. We could be talking about £25,000 and then surcharges and then interest. People taking out mortgages to be able to pay that money was quite inappropriate, sir. And the sooner we put this right, the better. And I hope you will enable us to do so.
Yeah, thank you. I don't see that it's me that's not enabling you to take it forward, if I'm honest. 10 or 20 days, that's an administration decision. That's not my decision. It's out of my hands. You've put the paperwork together. If those are the times that you want in there, then those are the times that you will have in there. But the fact of the matter remains the same. Will you show further leniency if there are delays afterwards, or are you going to set a realistic time frame where people should be able to meet it? And finally, with regards to the call-in, the onus is on getting it right. It's not me taking a personal attack on it. If it's going to be done, it needs to be done right, and that's all of it. And if you're already seeing that there are things in there that need to be changed, I would suggest it's not right and it needs to be amended. And that's what your executive need to be voting on. They need to be noting the statement of financial risk that's, again, is in the paperwork.
The financial risk is there. You haven't mentioned it. It's the first time you mentioned it. The financial risk is what it is. And as I've said again in my statement, this money should not have been collected. Should not have been collected. Now, I can't really trade with you in executive because I'm not uncomfortable by saying that's 30 days. I'm not uncomfortable by saying that's 15 working days. But if I did that now, I don't think you'd give me any assurance you wouldn't call it in. So I'm saying we will look at that and we will adapt it and do the best for the people of West Berkshire. And you will make a decision on what you want to do next. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Leader. I'll be brief. I mean, I've expressed my views on this often enough down the years at the Governance Committee and at full council, and you know that the minority group supports this report and your actions. I just wanted to very briefly, picking up on what Councillor Brooks said, this is somebody who had felt they had their lives turned upside down by this and who has spent hours, often in tears, to me on the phone about their case. And knowing what was being discussed tonight, sent me an email, which I just want to share with you. It's very brief. I honestly cannot begin to put into words what it means even to get the chance to be heard. This restores my faith in West Berkshire Council. That's all.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Gaines, did you want to add anything?
Only really to say, Leader, that 20 working days is actually a month and 10 working days is over 2 weeks. Gives people plenty of chance to actually review what they've been told and actually make a submission for a review. But I don't think I've got anything to add to what you've said already.
I will say this, Councillor Sumner's benefit. I'm not a great believer in saying, you got it wrong. You're 21 days. Now you're stuffed. That is not how I operate. And so if somebody were a day or two late, I don't think I would be anything less than lenient. But as I said to you, there might be a little bit of trimming to do. And that's where I'm going to leave it. And I'm going to ask for the members of the executive to show support for this, please. Thank you very much indeed. Next one up is it's me again, it's the Armed Forces Covenant, which I feel sure everybody will wish to support. I'm very, very grateful both to Caroline Richardson and Stephanie Stevenson as our Armed Forces champion. And they can speak more eloquently than me on this and what it means in terms of supporting veterans, ex-service people, committing so to do, and guiding the council in what we can do in support of those heroes, if you like, those people who selflessly put their lives on the line. My seconder, Councillor Foote.
Happy to second that.
Thank you very
Craig,
much.
thank you.
And I'm not going to say much more because I know that Councillor Stevenson, when I finish, will be much more eloquent than me on this aspect. It's come specially so to do. So if you don't mind, I'll ask Councillor Stevenson to speak now, and then I'll open it up to the floor. Councillor Stevenson, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. In 2011, West Berkshire Council signed the Military Community Partnership, but this has been superseded by the Armed Forces Act of 2021, meaning we need to sign the Armed Forces Covenant. Of course, as soon as I need this, it's gone to sleep. I can't believe it. Beg your pardon for this.
Happy to wait, Councillor Stevenson. I didn't expect to order my first drink till after 8 o'clock.
Okay, I've got it now. So I wanted, for the benefit of the public and for those people on Zoom, just to go over briefly what the Armed Forces Covenant is. It's a national promise to those who serve or who have served in the armed forces and their families to be treated fairly. It also aims to encourage charities, local authorities, including us, communities, businesses and individuals to work together with the military to offer support to service personnel and their families, as well as reservists and veterans. There's two principles to the covenant. Those who serve in the armed forces, whether regular or reserve, those who've served in the past and their families should face no disadvantage compared to other citizens in the provision of public and commercial services. Secondly, special consideration is appropriate in some cases, especially for those who've given most, such as the injured and the bereaved. Now, to all intents and purposes, we have been following these principles, but now we need to move on to sign the covenant. The Reserve Forces Cadet Association support another item called the Employers Recognition Scheme on behalf of the Ministry of Defence. Now, if we sign the covenant, we will be able to apply for the Bronze Award in this scheme. There are bronze, silver and gold awards for employers. Practically immediately afterwards, we are able to apply for the bronze, and I'm very ambitious, as is Carolyn Richardson, for us to go for the silver and on to the gold. In your pack, you may find at Appendix B some figures from the 2021 census. And in it, it gives you the figures for reservists and ex-regulars in the county of Berkshire. Amazingly, West Berkshire has more than the other unitary authorities. We have over 4,100 residents in West Berkshire, and the next unitary is Windsor and Maidenhead with 3,400. So people do know that it's a good place to live, to be in West Berkshire. I also attend a veterans breakfast once a month. This is held in Hennickfield. It's a national organisation, and the chap who runs it is a veteran himself. We have regularly over 70 people attend that breakfast, and I've been told that we are the second in the country for the size of people who attend our Veterans Breakfast Club. Second in the country. I've also attended 2 meetings of the Berkshire Civil Military Partnership. This is for the whole of Berkshire. I want to say that without Carolyn Richardson, the officer who supports me in my role as Armed Forces Champion, this organisation for the whole of Berkshire would not run as efficiently as it does. So I'd like to conclude by commending the signing of the covenant and the setting up of the task and finish group. Thank you.
Very much for that. That was very good indeed. And do I have any comments? Yes, Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks, and thank you for Councillor Stevenson as well for that really interesting statement that you made there. That I really enjoyed listening to that. Full-throated support from our side on this, as you may expect. And just a quick shout out really on a ward point of view from me. The village where I live, Burfield Common, is home to very many RAF servicemen and women. Many of whom my wife and I have become friends with because our children attend the same primary school. And when you talk about the sacrifice that our armed forces servicemen and women make, a very close friend of ours, she went on deployment with the RAF to the Falklands for 6 months. She's got a young child, and she missed her child for 6 months. That's the sort of sacrifice that I think for many of us would just be beyond the pale. But these guys do it. Let's say without a second thought. I'm not sure she found it that way, but they do it, and they do it for all of us. So full-throated support, wholehearted support on this, and well done, get it signed.
Very, very good. Thank you. Any other speakers on this? Councillor Foot, yeah, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, it's a delight to be able to second this motion. I had the great privilege and pleasure of being Mayor of Newbury for the last municipal year. And of course, as Mayor, you get invited to a lot of veterans events. And my colleague, Councillor Stevenson, eloquently described how vibrant the Thatcham Veterans Breakfasts are. And I'm pleased to report that we also have Veterans Breakfasts now in Newbury at the Royal British Legion Hague House in Pelican Lane. And also, I would also like to pay tribute to our council colleague, Mrs. Caroline Richardson, who's also championed this very seriously and has got this really moving. And it would be wonderful if we ended up as a gold recipient for this excellent thing. So it gives me great pleasure to second that. Thank you very much, Chair.
We seem all in favour of this, Councillor.
Can I just say that Caroline Richardson's actually is actually a reservist herself.
We had seen you there. I had said we were very grateful to you for all your work. It seems I'm being coaxed to say it again. Thank you so much, Caroline. All those in favour, please. Thank you very much. The next one is the Mental Health Fund. This will be introduced by the new portfolio holder, Councillor Clark. It's got Councillor Lewis on it, but Councillor Clark will introduce it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. This is a great first thing to propose for me. An excellent request for the approval of funds to be matched by the Greenham Trust to set up a new fund, which will improve the mental health and well-being of children, young people, and adults across West Berkshire. The fund will support projects to help reduce anxiety, improving mental health and well-being of those adults, children, and young people, aiming to reduce inequalities and improve educational attainment and school readiness. So I propose it.
Thank you very much. I think I have a seconder in Councillor Codling. Would you wish to speak, Councillor Codling, now or reserve your right?
I'll reserve my right.
Thank you very much indeed. I throw this open. I've got Joe Stewart, please, first up. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to see this proposal finally coming forward. Probably wouldn't be surprised as the previous mental health champion. And as part of the Mental Health Action Group and also Surviving to Thriving panel, we've been pushing for a new initiative to ensure that we continue the really good work that was done and the focus on positive mental health and well-being. I'm not sure why it's taken this amount of time to get to this point, because I know officers have been pushing for this for quite a long time, both in the council and also in Greenham Trust, who I speak to regularly. But I would hope that after tonight, the launch will be imminent, so that the people that really need this support can make an application and hopefully secure the funding that they need. So I'm just saying thank you.
Grateful to that, and I think we can give that reassurance, can we not? Thank you. I don't have any other speakers. I'll go to Councillor Codling.
Thank you very much. I sit on a number of different charity boards and meet with charities regularly. This funding will help greatly improve the outcomes for, particularly for me, for young children and young people who actually need this support to improve their attainment and school readiness in particular. Thank you.
Back to you then, Councillor Clark, to wrap.
Well, I mean, it's a very exciting thing to propose to start off with. Any opportunity to improve people's mental health is fantastic, and £100,000 here is great. So I propose it.
Thank you very much. All those in favour, please. Thank you. We're on to our final item before members' questions then, and this is item 12, the Hackney carriage tariffs. I'll introduce this in the absence of Councillor Dillon, who may be busy. Members will recall that we brought a paper to the March executive meeting seeking permission to go out to consult on the taxi tariffs for 2024. This was agreed, and a consultation was undertaken between the 21st of March and the 11th of April 2024. Since the report has been published, officers have been contacted by 2 operators, some members as well, I believe, expressing the concerns of some trade members of the negative impact of not increasing the tariffs and what that could have on their businesses. The officer's recommendation has, however, been drafted to reflect the outcome of the statutory consultation. I can confirm that we received 35 individual responses, as well as a separate response signed by 78 drivers from 1 operator. The responses were a mixture of objections to, general comments on, and support for the proposed changes. If the 8 comments on the consultation are discounted, 68% of the respondents objected to the increase in tariffs. 68% of the respondents objected to the increase in tariffs in 2024. It should also be noted that 83% of the trade that responded to the consultation objected to the increase, and this is reflected in recommendation 2.2, not to modify the existing tariffs from the rates agreed in 2023. There was some support for making changes to fouling charges, and I therefore support the proposal to increase those as set out in the paragraph, in paragraph 5.21. So our proposal is to keep the present tariffs the same, but increase the fouling charge, bearing in mind the fouling of a vehicle can take it off the run. And in taking it off the run, the operator cannot then earn fees. So that's the proposal, the report. My seconder is Councillor Gaines. Thank you very much.
Happy to second that, Chair.
And reserve your right. These members, nothing from the opposition. Councillor Gaines, back with you. This looks like it could go through.
Nothing really to add, Chair.
Thank you very much. And I would say that an operator can request a review at any time, I understand. So for those who might still disagree with it, bearing in mind the weight of consultation that said leave them as they are, we are following that approach. So again, all those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. And now I am, Thomas, ready for members' questions. We have 60 minutes for this. Let's get cracking. First one up. Okay, so first up is Councillor Reid. Good evening, Chris. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, Leader. As posed.
Thank you, Councillor Reid, for your question. I'm aware that a number of alleged breaches have been reported to the Council about the activities in this area. I think you're now aware that we are investigating these issues. A site visit by officers and myself is being arranged with you and members of the Parish Council in order to understand the position. I believe that the Executive Director of Place has recently contacted you and interested residents to explain these next steps in this investigation and the timescale for this. She has also suggested an approach to feedback feedback the outcome of the investigation and the next steps to you and the local representatives. Do you have a supplementary?
No supplementary. Thank you very much, and we look forward as residents for the next steps.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Reid. I think we're on to C then, but councillor Boak not here, so that'd probably be a written answer, I think. B has been withdrawn, Thomas. C is councillor Boak. Does anybody else want to put councillor Boak's question?
We can.
Let's have a look at it, see if I want to. It's for Heather Codling. Are you happier with a written answer or?
Happy to provide a written answer.
Yeah, okay, we're going written. I think I threw her. I think I threw her. I think she had assumed as I had. That's my fault entirely. Question D then, councillor Marsh.
Thank you. I'd like to submit question D on the agenda.
Thank you, councillor Marsh. Empty homes are such a waste of a valuable resource. I think we all know that. When people are crying out for homes, this sort of situation should be addressed as a matter of extreme importance. The council are absolutely committed to developing an empty property strategy in this financial year, 2024-25. Part of this exercise will be to develop a register of empty residential properties. Do you have a supplementary?
I think that's the first time that's ever happened. So when I've been asking questions of executive for some years now, and first time anyone's just said, yeah, great, we'll do it. So I appreciate it's not just because I've suggested it, councillor Gaines. I do have a supplementary, or rather, just that, are you aware that it isn't just a year? That was my suggestion, but there are properties, certainly in my ward, that have been empty for 5 years, and there are associated problems with rats running around in next door and really making life hell for neighbours, and little as seems to have been done. And I know you've expressed in the past that you were going to tackle this, and now it sounds as if you are doing.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I have a similar property in Hungerford in the same situation. So it is a travesty that people are actually leaving their homes empty for that sort of time, but we are addressing it.
Thank you very much. That's very good news.
And with impeccable timing, councillor Tony Vickers arrives as his question is called. Question, yes, really. Impeccable timing.
Ask the question standing in my name.
Thank you for your question, councillor Vickers. I want to say that first of all, that we're really committed to supporting all businesses in the district, and we are working hard to help keep Benchmark as one of those in West Berkshire. We've been supporting Benchmark by offering advice on areas where it should focus its efforts to secure new premises in a way that's likely to be supported through the planning system. And Benchmark also attended the Rural Business Forum that was held last year, which gave them an opportunity to engage with local stakeholders and establish available opportunities. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please. Do you think it might be possible in an instance like this for the council to fast track processing an application which is of such significance to the economy? I'm not saying we should make sure that we pass any planning application, but when it does come through, I think it's in the wider interests of the public locally that we fast track things like this.
We've had meetings with the director of place and one of the senior planning officers as well, and we're well aware of the priority for any business, including Benchmark. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, councillor Vickers. You can go now back to the street you were probably knocking on doors on. Good to see you. Good to have you here. You're welcome to stay. You know you are. F is councillor Wollaston. I'm not sure if he's still here.
He is, leader.
Thank you, councillor Wollaston.
Submit the question in my name.
Yes, indeed, councillor Foote.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wollaston, for your question. There is a clear aspiration for a new library in Thatcham, as identified through the Thatcham Master Plan and the Thatcham Strategy. The council is in the process of reviewing options to deliver community facilities in Thatcham Town Centre. The funding identified in the capital budget will help to support the implementation of this review. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Williston?
No question, just I hope you get on with it very quickly.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is G, Councillor McKinnon, to Councillor Foot again, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor McKinnon, for your question. Given the neglect under the previous administration, a significant amount of work had to be undertaken to return the pitch to a playable condition. This was admirably managed by the council's countryside team. In total, 40 hours of football has been played on the site. This would have been more had we not suffered, obviously, one of the wettest winters we've had in a very long time, which rendered the pitch unplayable for a while. And this has had a big impact, not just on Faraday Road, but obviously on playing pitches nationally. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do, Councillor Foot. Thank you, and congratulations on your first executive as well.
Thank you.
You mentioned the neglect of the previous administration. That's clearly not a description I would recognise. In fact, had it not been for an ill-advised judicial review supported by members of the then Liberal Democrat administration, the sports hub would have been opened well in advance of the election last year. And if it had been, a total of 4,368 hours of football could have been played in the year from May last year to May this year, compared with 40, as you've just advised me now. Still think it was a good idea?
Thank you very much for your observations. Obviously, I will take a note of those. Thank you very much.
Yes, I do think it was a good idea because it was supported by the people of Newbury, the football community, without any sort of doubt whatsoever, Councillor McKinnon, and they'll be happy with the 40 hours and they'll go up to the 4,000 in time.
I'm getting two answers to my questions, Leader. This I'm very, very privileged. Thank you.
Indeed. Two for your buck. Okay, Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Leader. So I'd like to submit question H on the agenda, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marsh, for your question. I'm slightly surprised that you feel the need to ask this question, Executive, given that you're a member of the Speed Limit Review Group and would be aware of the process and timescales for implementing speed limits. The Network Management Programme for 24-25 was approved by individual decision earlier this month, and I can confirm that this proposal to reduce this particular speed limit was added to this programme. It is therefore intended to complete the project this financial year, but I do need to point out that there are 3 other approved speed limit proposals that were identified before this one, and we'll be dealing with those ones first. You'll be aware that making changes to speed limits is a time-intensive process that includes a statutory consultation. And if any objections are received, this will further lengthen the process and may result in the proposals being subject to a further formal decision-making process. Do you have a supplementary question?
Well, yeah, it's because I'm a member of the panel that I'm asking the question, Councillor Gawley. Anyway, fine. All I would say is, do you endeavour to expedite this as fast as possible? So the last time I was involved with one of these in my ward, which was the reduction from 40 to 30 in Andover Road, it took many months for it to happen, and people were very frustrated by that. There's a real desire, particularly from parents of children at Highwood Copse School and St Gabriel's School, actually, on the other side of the road, not in my ward, but there's a great desire for this to happen as soon as possible. So could you see that it can be done as quickly as possible? Thank you.
Yes, as someone that's got young children, I fully understand why making our highways and footways a safe place to be is important. And as kind of mentioned in the answer, we're fully intending to complete this this financial year. There are other schemes in the pipeline that were ahead of this one. And however, there are the caveats that obviously with any potential objections being placed, it may lengthen that process. Thank you.
Hang on, Sadie, you've woken a few people up there. What is that? Okay, next one up is Councillor Wollaston. I think it's question I, it's on the screen.
Yes, Thank you very much, Councillor Williston, for your question. I fully appreciate the difficulty the recent flooding has caused across the district. Indeed, my own ward has been dramatically affected like your own, and therefore I fully understand the urgency. Officers and consultants are in the process of carrying out Section 19 reviews into the impact of the flooding, which will be reported to Scrutiny Commission later this year. This will inform our plans to help mitigate the impact of this flooding going forward. I'm very happy for you to be involved in that process. We're also obviously pressing other flood risk authorities such as the Environment Agency and Thames Water for action to improve their infrastructure to mitigate future flood risk. With regards to financial support, I'm pleased to let you know that the council has given out over 50 community and business recovery grants now and distributing over £90,000 to those in our communities directly impacted by the flooding. And we're also helping over 30 residents with property resilience grants, which allow those whose properties were flooded internally to claim £5,000 for each of the resilience message. I hope this reassures you that we're doing all that we can. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. I would be like to take up your offer of being involved in the process, by the way. Clearly, the major problem has been extraordinarily high levels of groundwater, and since submitting this question, the wettest April on record. Thankfully, the budget suggestion of cutting drain and ditch clearance was stopped. But can the council expand this going forward and try to explore action by riparian owners' obligations?
Yes, absolutely. I'm a big believer that everyone's got a personal responsibility to act in the correct manner. And I'm pleased to say that we've recently recruited 2 new members to the to the drainage team as part of the environment. And we've also moved and re-resourced 1 FTE in the team in light of the amount of work that is set to go on. And of course, again, I will warn residents that we expect another challenging winter in 2024. So, any action that can be taken now to protect their properties and their businesses is something that I would strongly advise. Thank you for your question.
Councillor Foot, I can't bring you in because it's the portfolio holder who has to handle the question. It's not a debate. The next one is Jay, Councillor McKinnon.
Thank you very much, Councillor McKinnon, for your question. The council spent £230,000 restoring the pitch to a playable surface, which included pitch preparation, fencing, goal catchers and changing rooms. Since opening, a further £7,000 has been spent on additional timber bollards to prevent access, also on cycle stands and routine maintenance. Do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Councillor Foote. So I make that 237,000 in total for a sum total of 40 hours of football, which I'm calculating as being just under £6,000 an hour. Compare that to the Sports Hub, which would have cost under £90 an hour. Given we've already discussed tonight that we're missing out on hundreds of jobs on that site, in addition to this astronomical cost per hour of football, isn't it time to admit that you got this one wrong?
Thank you very much for that supplementary question. And I'd refer you back to the earlier reply I gave that, as you know, the pitch was in a very poor state when it was taken over with our new administration. So it did take quite a lot of preparation to get it back to anything like a playable surface. And of course, as you well know, any comments that you may have about the spend obviously can be taken up with scrutiny later on. Thank you.
I think also, please don't get the idea that we agree with you that hundreds of jobs were lost there when a lot of buildings these days don't actually generate a lot of jobs. So you talked about you discussed, we didn't actually enter into that discussion much.
Mr. Brooks, can I make a point of order? I read with interest your letter in the paper today, and it was a wonderful big up of your executive committee, and I'm sure you guys all enjoyed it there. I'm now counting 10 separate times where you've bailed them out tonight, and I'm just wondering if your letter might just have been better, Sarah, being your own CV.
I don't recognise bailed out. If I add a little bit of additional information, I'm sorry, it's quite so amusing, Councillor Simon. I think that helps actually to answer the point that's being asked somehow. I have tremendous admiration for the quality of the people that we've got on the front bench, and as evidenced by the letter in the newspaper. Thank you. Moving on, and I won't stop from assisting, however much experience they might have, if I think I can take a chairman's privilege to add a little scintilla of assistance to improve the quality of the answer.
Thank you, Chair.
And moving on, I've got Councillor Marsh, I think now. Kay?
Yeah, can I still would like to submit this. You can see it's a little out of date. That's because it was originally submitted for the original days of this meeting, which preceded the week. We're now nearly at the end of the week, but I'd still be interested to know what Councillor Codling has to say about the week as a whole.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh, for your question. Yes, you're right. We're nearly at the end of the Walk to School week. I'm sure all of us in the chamber this evening will understand the importance of promoting active travel and encouraging children and young people to walk and cycle to school. Where it's possible for families, active travel is affordable, delivers significant health benefits, and has been shown to improve well-being, mitigate congestion, improves air quality, and has no carbon emissions at the point of use. This results in happier and healthier residents and visitors, as well as lasting local economic benefits. However, for working parents, this is not always possible. West Berkshire Council, through public health and education colleagues, support and work with schools to promote Walk to School Week. Information was shared with schools well in advance of the week, and all were encouraged to participate. Of course, this year it has come hot on the heels of SATs and amid GCSEs, so children and colleagues across our schools are very busy. We will continue to promote active travel all year round, and we have lots of information on our web pages that sets out a range of actions that can be taken to improve and encourage active travel for all our children. Do you have a supplementary?
I don't. Thank you very much.
And then on to L, which is Councillor Wollaston. Sorry, I'm looking at what's wrong with L. Thomas? That'll be a written answer. Thank you very much.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Go on.
This is the second question that's been submitted, one by a member of the public and now by me. I think it's very disappointing there's no one able to answer. And if I don't get an answer soon, I will be going to scrutiny commission.
Well, you must do what you feel is best, sir. I personally want portfolio holders to answer questions. You'll get a much more thorough written answer if the portfolio isn't in the room than somebody else perhaps picking it up. So you've got the 5 working days assurance of getting that answer, Councillor Wollaston.
But sadly, that will not be seen by the general public. And this is a major issue in my view.
It's a public document, sir. You can show it to who you like.
Very well.
So I'm going on to Councillor McKinnon.
Yes, thank you, Councillor McKinnon, for your question. The council has had to consider parking charges in light of the very difficult financial situation the council was left in. In our manifesto, we promised to consider lower cost and possible free parking in certain locations. I'm pleased to say that in line with our manifesto, we've been able to include reductions at some key locations to encourage longer dwell times in some of our town centre car parks. For example, Goldwell Park in Newbury is now free for up to the first 3 hours. All-day parking in Station Road, Hungerford, has reduced from £6 to £3, and season tickets in Pangbourne, Hungerford and Newbury are now cheaper than in previous years, giving much better value for regular visitors. There are many other examples that I'd be happy to share with you. Do you have a supplementary question? Sorry.
I do. Thank you, Councillor Gurley. So just to clarify, over the piece then, in total, is parking more expensive or cheaper now than in May 2023?
Thank you for the question. Our manifesto and our delivery plan, which you supported back last year, talk about targeted packages of lower cost parking. And I've just described to you a few places where we have delivered on that. Thank you very much.
I have nothing to add to that one, Councillor McKinnon. Councillor Wollaston N, please. Question N. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williston, for your question. We're delighted that the Lido project has been delivered for the use of local residents and that other projects are being developed, which will have a positive impact on the health and well-being of our residents. Prices are reviewed on an annual basis, and the council and everyone active, our leisure operator, strive to ensure that both prices and concessions are aligned to local market rates, ensuring that all sections of the community are able to access the facilities. Everyone Active also provides free or cheaper access to identified groups to increase participation. And I'd just like to add that I was in a meeting yesterday with Everyone Active executives, and this topic, amongst others, was discussed. Do you have a supplementary question, please?
I don't, but I'm just concerned because I've been contacted by numerous residents concerned about the increasing costs.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask you to perhaps to discuss with Active Everyone, what it's called, just see whether there's scope to reduce costs?
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Williston, and I will certainly take that on board. Thank you.
3 up from yourself, Councillor McKinnon, starting with O.
Yes, thank you again, Councillor McKinnon, for your question. You're probably aware that the council is currently developing its local transport plan, and as part of this development of the plan, there has been excellent progress made on investigating ways to reduce the impact of HGVs on our 10 centres and reducing emissions in urban areas such as Newbury. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do, and it's the same question that I asked you a second ago. What progress has been made in the investigation of a low emission zone specifically, as promised in your manifesto? And I'd like you to answer that specifically.
And I will refer you back to the answer to the question, which was around the fact that we've been reviewing impacts across our road, across our network as part of that local transport plan, and that includes road networks around Newbury in line with the local transport plan. Thank you.
Help him out, leader.
No. Moving on. Doesn't need it. Doesn't need it. You're up again on P.
Thank you very much for your question, Councillor McKinnon. There is no requirement on event operators to inform the council if they intend to give away pets as prizes. West Berkshire Council does not permit the giving away of pets as prizes on its land. The motion before council was to confirm that position and also to write to parish councils asking them to consider doing the same, and that has been done. Do you have a supplementary question?
No, thank you, Councillor Foote. Thank you.
And your final one.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor McKinnon. Given the concern expressed by many residents over the management of our roads by the previous administration, the Liberal Democrat administration commissioned an independent review on how the council goes about identifying and fixing potholes. This review has now been completed and has identified several clear recommendations which will improve our roads for our residents across West Berkshire, which the highway services are working to implement. These changes will be announced in the coming weeks, and I look forward to sharing them with you. Do you have a supplementary?
We've had a bit of fun tonight with some of these answers, and I think it's been good-natured, but that is not remotely an answer to the question, leader. Can we please answer the question asked you? Because 10 days to get an answer to this. This is getting a bit ridiculous.
Councillor McKinnon, that's a supplementary.
I missed the supplementary question, if I'm honest. You will hear more in the coming weeks as we reveal our new plans for how we manage our highways. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for what I think was a good-tempered meeting. Frustration, no doubt, on some corners, something that we got used to over many, many years. And I declare the meeting over and wish you a good weekend. And am I missed something? What have I missed? Something? I've got a part 2. Oh, what do I know? I mean, and it was going so well. Okay, we need to move into part 2. Can I have a proposal? Do I need a proposal? I do need a proposal. I'm going to propose we move into part 2. Thank you, Councillor Gawley. And we need a vote on